The Ashwood Curse, A Tale of Shadows and Secrets in Ashwood Forest, by Kevin Pierce. The forest remembers every secret. Chapter 1. Return to Ashwood. The train rattled through the dense forest, fog curling around the windows like ghostly fingers. Elsie Morrow pressed her forward to the cold glass, trying to catch a glimpse of anything familiar. It had been 12 years since she had last seen Ashwood, the village where her mother was born and where her mother had died. Now 17 and very much alone, Elsie had no choice but to return. A letter for her grandmother had arrived 2 weeks ago, written in a sharp, slanted hand. It's time, the forest stores again. Ashwood was the sort of place people didn't talk about unless they had to. Nestled in the shadow of ancient trees, it was more legend than town. Rumors rolled around it like mist, strange sightings in the woods, disappearances, and curses whispered from one generation to the next. The train ground to a halt. Elsie stepped onto the cracked stone platform, boots crunching against frost-beaten lips. Her grandmother, Viola, stood waiting, tall and stern in a wool cloak that looked older than time itself. "You've grown," Viola said without smiling. Her voice was rough, like lips scraping together. Elsie nodded. "It's good to see you, Grand." Viola turned and began walking. The house is the same, the forest is not. They walked in silence past twisted trees and mossy gravestones. The village looked like a head falling asleep 100 years ago and never woken up. Every window watched them pass. Inside the house, little had changed. Elsie's old room still smelled of lavender and dust. A diary lay on her pillow, her mother's diary. The first page was dated exactly 20 years ago. That night, Elsie dreamed of the woods. She was running barefoot through thick fog, voices whispering her name. A figure stood beneath a dead tree, face hidden by shadows. When she stepped closer, it opened its eyes that looked exactly like her own. Elsie woke with a start, heart pounding. The curse, they said, began with her great-grandmother. Now, it was Elsie's turn to break or be broken by it. Chapter 2. The Diary. The diary pages were brittle, ink faded to the color of old blood. Elsie read by candlelight, the words more haunting than comforting. "There's something in the woods," her mother had written. "It watches. It waits. Grandmother says it's just the forest playing tricks, but I know better. I hear it in my dreams." Viola refused to talk about the past, but the diary told enough. Each entry chronicled the descent her mother slipping deeper into fear, into belief. The villagers had this mysterious unshakable, but Elsie saw the truth etched in every trembling line. There was a pattern. Her mother, her great-aunt, and great-grandmother all around age 17, all dead before 20. That morning, Elsie wandered to the edge of the woods. The trees whispered, no, there was no wind. A crow landed on the branch and stared at her. "You're back," it got, startled Elsie's tremble. Had she imagined that? The bird flew off, but the chill in her bones stayed. She returned to the diary, one passage stood out. "There's a tree at the center. The cursed tree. Don't go near it after sunset." Elsie traced the words. The dream, the dead dream, it was real. Chapter 3. Howlerwood. Viola finally spoke at breakfast. "You found her diary?" she said flatly. "Yes. I suppose you think it's all truth." Elsie looked up. "Isn't it?" Viola sighed, pouring tea from a chipped pot. "Ashwood has always been a strange place. The forest is older than anything here, older than names. We used to call it Howlerwood. Why? Because that's what lies beneath. Howlerwoods, empty places." Later, Elsie explored the attic and found an old map, sketched in charcoal. A great path twisted through the woods to a place marked with an X. That night, she slept from the house with a lantern. The forest swallowed her whole. No bird song, no wind, just stillness. Her lantern flickered. Then, a voice, Elsie, she spun, hard hammering. No one. A low hum vibrated in the ground. She found a tree black and gnarled and massive. It was hollow, just as the diary said. Something ancient and cold slumbered beneath a spruce, and then something moves inside it. Chapter 4. The Whispering Tree. The tree pulsed with something just beneath the bark like a headband, like a bridge. Elsie stood frozen, watching the howling as threatened a natural silence. Her lantern's light flickered madly, casting shifting shadows across the gnarled bark. She should have run, every part of her screamed to flee, but the roots beneath her feet hummed with something that wasn't entirely evil, just ancient. And then she heard the voice again. Elsie. Only this time it was her mother's voice. She backed away, heart hammering. In the ground beneath her foot gave way. She tumbled down the slope, branches loud in her arms. Her lantern crossed somewhere about, plunging her into thick darkness. Something moved beside her, a grunt, a whisper, a breath, like a breeze where there is none. Then silence. When she finally clocked her way back to the path, she realized the humming that stopped. The tree, and whatever lay beneath it, had gone still. Back home, she found Viola waiting on the porch. No lantern, no coat. You've seen it, Viola said, not asking. It's begun. What is it? Elsie asked, shaking. Why is it calling me? Viola didn't answer immediately. She looked to the woods, face scarred from storm. It's not a what, it's a who, and it doesn't call just anyone, only those of mortal blood. Inside, Elsie's hands wouldn't stop trembling. Her mother had none. Viola had always none. And now it was her turn. Chapter 5. The Forgotten Child. Elsie spent the next day combing the attic. If the truth wouldn't come from Viola's lips, it had to lie hidden somewhere in the worms had the house. Behind an old mirror, she found it, a box bound in leather, sealed with wax. Inside were letters, pages upon pages from someone named Enero Morrow. The earliest dated back to 1849. One letter told her he was never meant to be born. The forest demanded a price, and I gave it, but I hear him still. He's not gone. He waits beneath. Holyrood. Who is he? A son, a sacrifice. The journal detailed an old custom, one of villagers abandoned in shame. Every fifth generation, a child was offered to the woods to maintain peace. Enor had broken that pact, and so the forest had taken her child anyway. Elsie slammed the pack shut, bile rising in her throat. He was still there, still waiting, and somehow her bloodline had been tied to his rage ever since. That night, Elsie returned to the woods with a single match and a heart full of questions. But she was not alone. A girl stood at the edge of the clearing, dressed in white, eyes black as pitch. She opened her mouth and screamed. Chapter 6. The Screaming Girl. The scream pierced through every tree, every branch, every nerve in Elsie's body. It wasn't human. It was pain and fire and centuries of mourning compressed into a single, unending note. Elsie dropped the match and fell to her knees. The girl vanished like smoke, leaving only silence in her place. Leaves rustled. Something massive sinks in the soil. Then, Footsteps. Not the quiet crunch of woodland creatures, but their feet on leaves. Measure. Intentional. Elsie grabbed her rug, her only weapon. The footsteps stopped just beyond her line of sight. She held her breath. "Do not fear me." The voice was low, broken. A boy maybe 17, maybe ancient. He stepped forward, half in shadow. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken. "Who are you?" she asked. "They called me Thomas. Once, before the roots took my name." He looked at her like she was a ghost. "You carry her blood," he said. "And Aura, and Ellen, and Marla. The curse loops back again. I want to end it," Elsie said, voice shaking. Thomas turned his head. "Then you'll have to remember what they forgot." And just like that, he vanished. Only the whisper of wind remained and a bitter taste of ash on her gum. Chapter 7. The Fire in the Glen. Ashwood's villagers were quieter than usual the next morning. Doors closed faster. Eyes dropped to the ground, and no one spoke at the scream that tore through the forest the night before. Elsie tried to ask the baker's wife, a kind woman named Merrill, if she had heard anything. "We don't go near. Polly Rood," Merrill said quickly, handing her the bread. "Not since the Halloween." "What's the Halloween?" Merrill's face pale. "It's not for you to talk up, child." But that's all Elsie could do now. She returned to the clearing, and there, scorched into the grounding black in lust, was a spiral. Not drum, but burned. Something or someone had marked the glen. In the center of lay a single object, a small wooden flute. It buzzed faintly when she touched it. Back at the house, she showed it to Viola. "That belonged to him," her grandmother said after a long pause. "To Thomas." "You knew him?" "I know him still," Viola whispered. "He's the forest fearing now. But once, he was just a boy stolen by tradition." Elsie gripped the flute. "What happens if I play it?" Viola didn't answer. That night, Elsie played it anyway, and the forest opened its eyes. Chapter 8. The Pact. The melody was simple, haunting like a lullaby twisted by grief. The trees waiting rhythm, their lips humming back, and then the air split. Thomas appeared again, half-formed, his voice clearly now. "You're the first to summon me willingly," he said. "I want to understand." Elsie told him what really happened. He sat beside her on the ground, a ghostly shimmer in moonlight. "My mother broke the pact. She refused to give me up. She thought love was enough to defy the forest. It wasn't. She wrote that she gave you." Thomas smiled bitterly. "She tried to undo the ritual. The forest took me anyway but twisted." He reached toward her, but his fingers passed through her arm. "I'm not whole," he said. "That's the curse. I remain, in pain, in pieces, and your family is bound to me by the thread your ancestors knit." Elsie swallowed. "How do I break it?" "You must finish as we started," he said. "Go to the ash altar, offer blood and truth." She nodded. "Where is it?" His eyes turned dark. "Beneath the oldest truth, where light has never touched." Chapter 9. Beneath the root. Elsie packed before dawn. Viola didn't ask questions, only handed her silver high dagger in the satchel of dry hairs. "You'll know what to do when the time comes," Viola said, her voice low with grief and fear. Elsie entered, Holyrood for what she hoped would be the last time. The flute led her its not drying up from storm, parting vines, revealing the path only a morrow could walk. Hours passed, the light dimmed, then the ground sloped steeply downward into a tunnel of tangled roots. She ducked and stepped carefully, deeper and deeper, until there was no sky above. The asphalt too was no structure, it was a circle of stone and bone, older than language. The tree about had no leaves. Its bark was black, as if hung from the inside out. Elsie knelt, pulled the dagger from her belt, and sliced her palm. Blood hit the roots. The forest shuddered. Thomas appeared weak and whole. Finally, his eyes wide with wonder. "You found it," he whispered. "The truth, the prize, the end." The ground trembled. Then the roots cracked open and something far older than Thomas began to rise. Chapter 10. The Thing Below. From the cracked earth beneath the ash altar, a presence surged, not flesh, not shadow, but a memory so old it carried no name. It wasn't Thomas. It was what had made him. The roots pulled wider, revealing a vast pit. Elsie stepped back, shielding her eyes from the heedless light pouring upward. A whisper climbed out of the void, not with words, but with hungers. It wanted her blood, her soul, her name. Thomas staggered beside her, clutching his chest. "It's not just a curse, it's a wound, and I am the scab." "What is that?" Elsie gasped. "The original pact," he said. "The forest gave power. Ashwood took it, but the price was never paid, so it fed on us, piece by piece." The light twisted, coalescing into shapes, faces, many of them crying, screaming, flickering like candle flames in a gale. Elsie knelt, pressing her bleeding hand to the stones. "I offer truth," she whispered, "that you were wrong, that we were blind, that the dead is real." The altar paused. To think below pause. Thomas grabbed her arm. "You must name it." "How?" "You know it." And then it hit her, not a word, but a feeling grief that became hunger, pain that became legacy. She whispered its name, Halloween, and the forest screamed. Chapter 11. The Halloween. The scream was thunder and ash and bone. Trees bent backward. Birds burst into fly. The old tree stones cracked, and the spiral bent right up beneath her feet. But the Halloween didn't rise. It recoiled. Thomas stood tall now, fully solid, no longer flickering. The curse that held him that cracked. "It's afraid," he said, breathless. Elsie stared down at the roots. "Why?" "Because you see it now. And what's seen can be unmade." Beulah's words echoed in her mind. "You'll know what to do." She raised the tiger and blanched until the spirit peril. The earth shook. Roots gurgled inward. The Halloween shrieked now eerie, but in fear. Fire burst from the cracks. The altar crumbled. The forest above ground is torn at the spine. Elsie screamed as the spiral broke through her brain's memories, not her own, searing into her mind. Honora's sorrow, yielding sacrifice, her mother's final breath. Thomas grabbed her hand. "Hold on. You're undoing centuries." And then silence, not a deathly silence, but peace. The Halloween was gone. Elsie collapsed, breath ragged. Thomas knelt beside her. "You did it." "No," she whispered. "We did." Chapter 12. The Awakening. When Elsie awoke, the forest was different. Still, golden, alive. The twisted trees had straightened. Moss bloomed green instead of gray. The ash shelter was gone, replaced by clearing carpeted in violets. Thomas stood at the edge, dressed in light. No longer ghosts were echo. "You broke it," he said softly. "The bloodline, the spiral, the curse. Are you free?" He looked at his hands, then the sky. "I think so. But this place, I think it needs a guardian." She stood beside him. "And that's you?" He smiled faintly. It always was. Elsie returned to Ashwood as the sun rose. The villagers felt the truth, the lifting, the liveness. Windows open, children laughed. Meryl handed our love her breath and whispered, "You went there, didn't you?" Elsie nodded. "It's over." Viola hugged her tight for the first time in years. "You are the end of it, and the beginning." That night, Elsie stood at the edge of the woods. A breeze caressed her cheeks, soft and warm. A whisper followed, "Thank you." Chapter 13. The Ruthless Day. Ashwood bloomed like a place reborn. The fields, long starred and brittle, turned lush overnight. The well that had run dry for 2 decades now overflowed. The air held the sweetness no one remembered, not just the scent, but a sense of brightness. But Elsie couldn't rest. The forest called to her, still no longer in pain, but in invitation. Each morning she walked its new trails. The thorns were gone. The silence now sang. Animals had returned, deer, birds, even foxes with golden eyes. And yet there was something missing. Thomas. She hadn't seen him since the spiral vanished. No dreams, no whispers. She sat at the base of the now living Street and crossed her hand to a trunk. Where did he go? She whispered. The bark was born beneath her fingers. And then a single leaf drifted into her lap's silver band, unlike any other. A sign? Viola found her in the kitchen later, boiling tea. "You feel it, don't you?" the old woman asked. "The forest changed," Elsie said, "but something's unfinished." Viola nodded. "The curse is broken, but healing takes more than silence. You must listen to what's left behind." Chapter 14. Letters in the Dust. Elsie returned to the attic, drawn by some instinct she couldn't name. Behind the false wallboard, she found a hidden drawer. Inside it, parchment, old and flaky, covered in lubricant script. Letters from Honor to her child Thomas. They were never sent, or maybe never finished. I hear you in the sorrow. I feel your heart in the wind. You were meant to live. I was too weak to fight the pact, and too proud to peg the forest. Forgive me. I failed you. There were dozens more, unsigned, unsent. Elsie wept. She returned to the glade with the letters and read them aloud beneath the ash tree. Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. When she finished, the wind shifted, and from the mist stepped Thomas Hall, golden and smiling. "You found them," she nodded. "They loved you. They just didn't know how to save you." He reached out, and this time, when he touched her hand, it was warm. "I was never angry," he said. "I just needed someone to remember me." "I'll remember," Elsie promised. He smiled. "Then I can rest." And like the final note ever about, he faded into light. Chapter 15. The Forest Remembers. Seasons passed. Ashwood grew. A new school opened. The trees bore fruit they hadn't in generations. People spoke of luck, of renewal, of a girl who had once walked into the woods and come out different. Elsie stayed. She planted herbs in the gardens, brewed potions for the sick, and wandered the forest path with a journal tucked under her arm. No curses followed her now, only curiosity. But some nights, when the moon was high and the wind spoke in green, she would feel him, Thomas, watching from somewhere just past the veil. One day, a child in a village told her, "Miss Elsie, the forest told me your story." She nodded, smiling. "Oh, and what did it say?" "The book grant. It said you listen." That night, Elsie wrote in a fresh diary, "The forest doesn't forget. It roots deep, even in grief, but it blooms, too, and sometimes, in the silence after sorrow, something new begins. She closed the book and placed it beside her mother's, her grandmother's, and Honora's, and the wind whispered through, Hollywood like a sound written. Chapter 16. The Bone Path. Autumn returned to Ashwood at fire-colored lips and early for us. Elsie noticed something new in the forest and uncovered trail, the ground marked by wild, pepper-shaped like palms. It hadn't been there before. She followed it cautiously, the air colder with every step. Though the curse was broken, the forest had layers. Some stories born to race they were only buried. At the end of the trails, to the cottage, half swallow Bradbury and Tom. A girl perched on the booth, watching her. It blinked twice, then flew off. Inside the college, the air was decked with just in memory. On the mantel sat a parted dove, an armor holding its white tribe, Thomas. Beneath it, carved into the wood, forgiveness is the root of all magic. Elsie explored deeper. A trunk sat in a corner, locked with the rusted clubs. She pried it open and found bones not human, but bird-like, delicate, arranged in a spiral, and tucked beneath them a journal, not Honora's, not Viola's, her mother's. Elsie opened it. The first line stopped her heart. The forest just you. Elsie, I tried to stop it. Chapter 17. The Mother's Truth. Elsie read each word like they were fire. You were born during the longest eclipse in Ashwood history. The forest marked you. I saw in your eyes the same light Thomas had, the same silence before the scream. Her mother hadn't just died, she fought the curse, pegged the forest, and sacrificed herself to delay it. Viola doesn't know. She believes I was too weak, but I made the deal. My life for your delay. I prayed it would be enough time for you to find the truth. Tears blurred Arcee's vision. The journal continued. If you're reading this, you found the altar. You've seen the hollowing, but you must also find the well of names. There lies the final drab what binds blood to bark. Unravel it, and we're free. Leave it knotted, and live begin again. Elsie closed the book. The well of names, another secret buried beneath centuries of silence. She returned to Viola, shaking. Why didn't you tell me? Viola looked up, startled, then quietly, because I didn't know how much she had given. They stood in silence. Then Viola said, If you go to the well, don't go alone, and handed her a small key. Chapter 18. The Well of Names. The key led Elsie back to the spiral clearing, but this time she walked in a circle 3 times, as her mother's journal instructed. A hidden hatch opened beneath them blocks. Stone steps led down into a root-veined cavern. Added centers to the wall shallow, merrily smooth, rammed with carvings. Names covered at the inch. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Thomas, Honora, Ellen, her mother, and at the center Elsie Morrow. She guessed. I haven't died. The Wild Ripper. A voice echoed not a whisper, but a memory. Every Morrow girl is born into the forest ledger. Until the thread is good, your name is always waiting. Elsie reached into her satchel, pulled out her mother's journal, and dropped it into the well. The water shimmered, then turned to fire. Every name except one vanished. Elsie. A new name rose in its place. Elsie Morrow, keeper of Ashwood. The spiral on her palm glowed faintly, and the voice returned, gentler this time. You chose truth over silence. Life over fear. This place is yours now. The wild dim. the stone cold, and the forest exhale. Chapter 19. Keeper of Ashwood. Spring came early that year. The snow melted gently from the hills, and the forest of Ashwood bloomed in colors long forgotten violet crocuses, cold-leaf ferns, and wild roses curling around tree trunks as if recalling something sacred. Elsie Morrow walked the new past, her spiral-marked palm warm to the touch, never burning, never hurting, only present. A soft paw, a quiet rhythm, like the forest sobs, was breathing with her. She had become something else. Not haunted, a keeper. The well of names still sat deep in the earth, but it was silent now. Elsie had filled the ledger with love and still at that. With truth instead of sacrifice, Viola sat on the porch most days, knitting in peace. Sometimes she'd glance at her granddaughter and say nothing, just smile in that way that meant, I see you. I finally see you. The villagers no longer feared Holyrood. Children played at the edge of the woods, gathering flowers. One day, Meryl's daughter found the perfect place, smooth white stone, and swore she heard it hound. And still, sometimes, when dusk settled deep in the trees, whisper in dimmer tones, Elsie would hear Thomas in the wind now bound, not sorrowful, just watching, grateful. On the eve of the anniversary at the Halloween's fall, Elsie stood at the center of the glade. She opened the blank journal and wrote the first line. This is not a story of monsters. It is a story of memory, of a forest that does not forget, and a girl who dared to listen. She placed it in the roots of the ash tree and whispered the blessing in the old town. The leaves shimmered, and from deep within the park, the forest whispered back,